I will be linking this document to y'all at the end of the session, and it will be in the description with the recorded video as well. So if you have to hop off early and don't get it, we'll make sure it gets out there. But I'm going to give it to you at the end of the session because as we go through these models, you'll see we're going to start listing off some pros and cons of each model, and then tips and suggestions. These tips will not just be from me and John. We're hoping some experienced users will also chime in, things they do think the model does really well or really horribly. That way, just to kind of give y'all some ideas. And it also has starting tips from both me and John. So I know in all of my classes, I tend to repeat myself a lot. I know what works for me, what I found works, so that's what I stick with. So I'm not going to have a whole lot here to offer y'all, but as John starts diving into everything, I might pipe up with a suggestion or my ideas. But my biggest thing for those, especially just starting out with Sudowrite, is in this starting tip right here, find a chapter. In this instance, I happen to have this prologue chapter that's, as you can see, very short. So something like this, find a chapter and use one stride of that. So again, that's 2 beats. Just that one stride, nothing in the style box, and run all of the models down here. And what that'll do is give you a very good overview of what its base output is like. So you might see one that you just hate right away. You don't have any inclination to try to work with it. One that's very close to your style and you want to tweak that to make it even better for you. You might find one that you love its style, but doesn't listen. Hello, unfiltered. So try that out. Run a stride, nothing in the style box through all of the models, and kind of get started in picking out those models that you really like and want to work with instead of getting overwhelmed with this extensive list of models that we have in this list right here. Don't get overwhelmed with that. Run a stride through them, see what you think.
So what did you, or how did you do it? Like I would do it with, one doc for each of the models. Did you do it that way? Did you just rerun the stride in the same doc?
I would do the
And
different docs as well, just for ease of not having to constantly scroll down whenever I'm looking at everything. Or just if you want to stay in the same doc, just make sure you're hitting that restart thing. Of course, if
yeah,
you're just running that one stride.
and name it the model that you're working in. This is
Mhm.
most accurate. This is best prose. This is bounce. So you can go back and look at it and sort of make an assessment of how it's going to handle the beats that you've written, the way that you write beats. And that kind of goes on, I think what Claire was pointing out before was that, the other elements that are variables here are definitely the beats as well as everything else that's in that. It's there when you hit generate. So beats, style, genre, and what's in your character box. All of that is going to affect what's happening. Off the top of my head, really quick, I pointed out here that the thing that surprised me the other day was that I was having great luck with getting really long passages out of Ouroboros off of a single stride. But if I put numbers in, beat 1, beat 2, if I had that number at the top, other than if I was using a header with the first number, but like if I had numbers in there, it would just give horrible output with enumeration. Like 1, it would have 1. It would tell me, it would give me just like a little tiny expand of that beat or something. And it's like, okay, this isn't working at all. What's wrong with it? It's broken now. And I got rid of those numbers, just had 2 paragraphs, and it went through beautifully. And it back to the 1,000 words coming out from a single stride. It's weird to work that way. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And so Ouroboros is a bit of an outlier in terms of the way I work with it, but because I like its output so much, I tend to use it. Now the other ones will, like, if you get that first stride out of Ouroboros that you really like, and then you can use the other ones to kind of look like Ouroboros because they're coming later, and it reads back 250 words. The biggest difference between what's going on in Write today versus what's going on in Generate Prose is going to be how far back it looks. So if you have 1,000 or 2,000 words of text already, Write is going to write things that sound like the text that's already written there. And it's really good at picking up on a lot of information that sometimes the chapter generator tends to hallucinate, because the chapter generator only looks back 250 words. So you're talking about a page of text back. Think of it that way. Let's shall we stay with the story? Nicole, have you generated this in Most Accurate?
No, so I'm going to, do you have something to generate with your stuff?
I've got my weird dragon story, so we could
Okay.
go with that.
So I'm just going to give a reminder to everyone that they recently tweaked the prompting for the style box. And so if you're like me, you didn't like Most Accurate's output before. I know in class the other day, I didn't recall that they had done this change. I generated a Most Accurate for demonstration purposes, demonstrated best prose right after. Guess what? They sounded exactly the same because they've done that prompting to where these models really, really, really listen to your style right now. So this is also good for you experienced users. Y'all have been settled with using just one particular model for the style. You might want to play around with them again and see if one is working better with your go-to style. So I'd like to just kind of go over briefly my thoughts, get other people's opinions, just this quick overview, what you like or dislike about the models without going into detail. And then I'd like to hand it over to John so he can actually go more in depth and offer his really good suggestions.
That sounds
Does
like a
that sound
great idea.
okay?
Let's do that. Yes.
All righty. So Most Accurate. Like I just said, I don't care for Most Accurate. However, with that style change, when it generated for me the other day, I actually liked it. It was good. It was listening, did what I wanted. It didn't do that opening describing the setting that Most Accurate always tends to do.
What if you
For the
want that?
first.
How do you bring that back?
So if you want that, I would prompt it in that beat for your first bit.
Describe
You can
setting. Yeah.
describe the setting of it and everything, kind of like this is right here, coincidentally.
Just hopefully
Also,
no
if
sun.
we have tips for that to at least try to minimize it. No guarantees. It doesn't work 100%. So yeah, if y'all really like those, if you're one that you love those the purple prose, the lush descriptions, all of that, you might find yourself having to prompt a little bit extra for it. We all know Most Accurate obeys the beats the best. The downside, and I have not tested this since the tweak, is I know before I'm trying to find a, okay, so like in this line right here, highlighting the more ambiguity. So before, again, I haven't tested this since the style change. I know before, guess what? There's 9 times out of 10, Most Accurate is going to put this almost verbatim in the prose somewhere because it's in my beats. That's how well it listens to your beats. So I always tell people, if you have wording in here that you don't like, get rid of it, rewrite it, delete it, do whatever. Only have words in here that you would want the AI to use. I'm trying to, I think that's pretty much it. Again, I wasn't a fan of it with this recent style box change. I think I might actually try it again though and see how it goes. Most Accurate is the most expensive. That's something we actually noticed the other day. These are listed in order of most expensive to least expensive. I don't know about these. They kind of look like they are, but I'm not positive. But these are
They're all
definitely,
pretty cheap on down there.
yeah.
So I think you might be right. We may be looking at it most expensive down to least expensive. Has Most Accurate changed price model at the yet?
I
I thought
don't
it got a
know if
little
it's in Sudowrite. They just, OpenAI just reduced pricing of like 3.5. So we'll have to wait and see how that affects, Most Accurate and stuff here, since this is GPT-4.
probably not. But
But hey,
3.5, it would affect the beats.
and two, that's fastest. So fastest might even become, I don't know,
Oh,
that
fastest
has to
is
kind of
cheap.
trickle down.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it might even become cheaper. So for those unfamiliar, Most Accurate, balanced, and fastest are all OpenAI models. All of the models, people are always like, well, what can I do spicy content with? Honestly, you can do spicy content with all of these models. You can do violence with all of these models. It's that each one has a certain threshold. So if you're like me, you like writing the dark, intense sexual scenes, there's gonna come a point where you're gonna trigger and it's gonna like, nope, I'm not writing that. Same thing with violence. It'll write violence. It depends on how graphic and just intense you get with that, extremes. measures. So most accurate, follows the beats very well. Free style box change. It also was very on the nose with wording from the beats box. Anything you'd like to add on most accurate? Summary overview wise?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to describe it. Like if you needed something like you wanted a script, you wanted script style, most accurate gave you beautiful scripts. But there are other models that will also give you a script. Goliath is very good, and you can get a script out of Ouroboros.
And you could do a
Like
header
sometimes
like
it just
this on the
decides.
beat.
Yep.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah,
Header like that
that's
over the
a
style
great way
box.
to do it. And a lot of the models will do it. I've just gotten better with most accurate and Goliath and Ouroboros. Balanced, I don't know. I haven't messed around enough with it. I think fastest does it. And again, it's a different flavor. It is fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's stay with most accurate. The other thing about the most accurate that we can describe it is just that it's a bit pedantic, or it has been in the past. And you're telling me it's like best prose now? That's amazing. So
Well, yeah, well, it's just the fact that it listened to that style box. So, let's try this real quick. This is chapter 1. Just need to make sure I was in the right chapter. Delete my style box.
style history is still broken.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, watch out for that, guys. If you delete your style box, copy it somewhere.
I'm actually going to erase my header too. Again, no style formatting. Just to kind of get an idea of this. And I'm just going to run the first stride.
You don't need the one now.
Right, yeah.
I'd get rid of it just because I saw something different than when I had numbers and when I didn't have numbers on Ouroboros.
All right, so I'm just going to generate one stride, and then I will regenerate that stride as we do this brief overview of the models. And again, John's going to go in much more detail with y'all as we go through this. But after we're done going through this list, then we can look back real quick and compare these models.
But John, you mentioned before that when you're running these models, it only looks back 200-300 words. But you had said just before that, something else read back 1,000 or 2,000 words, but I missed what that was.
It's the
That's
right function up top left.
I don't use anything in the top. I probably should. I should put something
Oh,
in with
you
brainstorm.
really want to try this. I know we're not talking about this today, but they made that work with Story Bible. That
Yeah.
didn't do that a week ago.
And
Oh,
I actually prefer to write using auto-write more than I like Story Bible. Story Bible's easier for me to get, all of my information there at once. So the AI is kind of taking over once I have all my intense planning done. But this, using the write, that's just an enjoyable experience. I can start writing out how I see my scene going. When I need the help from the AI, I can just click that button. And now with
wow.
it connected to Story Bible, it's a really, in my opinion, just a very nice, relaxing experience to write this way. So definitely play with it.
Perfect. I'll do it.
So I really do like the fact that we didn't start with the sun coming up and having long shadows. That's sort of amazing. Yeah, this is what you're talking about with the new prompting.
And I
Fantastic.
will, we'll go through all this at the end and see if anything
Check
stands
prices
out.
as we do this, right?
We can do that. So we
Yeah.
can see one stride of most accurate was 6,562. So again, most expensive all the way down to least expensive. So best prose. That
Best
is
Prose has a tendency to go a little bit further off the rails. And once it goes off the rails, it keeps going off the rails. So the issue with that is just that if you've got a lot of beats that you're going through, it doesn't have that ability to rein in the way that most accurate does. Most accurate will throw out and not think about the end of the last stride if it needs to go back. And so that'll feel like looping sometimes with most accurate, because it'll run that first stride. The thing that annoys me the most is when it runs the first stride, but it runs all the beats in the beatbox in the first stride, and then on the second stride, it kind of starts back up. I haven't seen if this model now, if this new thing is doing that. We're getting some good chat. I wanted to see what people.
But what John just said reminded me too. Y'all keep in mind as you're working with these models, when you click that generate prose button down here, before it generates the first word of prose, every model not just some of them. Every model reads all of the beats in your box. Keep that in mind if you find you're having trouble with something being pulled in. You can use John's ellipses method, which I'm sure he'll go over later. But keep that in mind. It reads all of your beats. So whenever you generate beats, and a lot of times those last 2 or 3 beats are like style instructions. We questioned the staff about this. We're like, hey, shouldn't that be up top? And that's when they told us, hey, it reads all of those beats first, so it sees those style instruction beats. That's why they work to be the last one. Yes, you can remove those, put them as a header, or delete them entirely if you don't like them, whatever. But I just
Oh, so
want you
just
to be
don't
aware
run
of that.
them. Yeah. Leave
I
them
have
you could
actually
leave
even
them at
done
the
that
bottom.
before. I've just left them there and ran them as beats, and I was actually kind of happy, but there's no real depth to them. Yeah. So yeah, just keep that in mind with all these models. I forgot to mention that.
And don't forget they read the genre and style and characters as well. So if you
Mhm.
can't figure out why your bad guys keep kissing each other, have you got like romance and genre
Yes.
for some reason? Yeah, it's gonna pull that in as well.
And
Yeah.
and again, the question there is, are you putting secrets in the beats that are further on? You know, so if you have something that's a big reveal, don't reveal it to the first stride. Reveal it only to that last stride. So keep it hidden until you get to the last stride, and then put the real beat in there so that it understands, oh, this is different from everything before. Either that, or it's going to keep, oh, there, little did they know what's going to happen soon. And the whole thing is going to be this, it thinks it's foreshadowing, but it's just annoying.
Little did Sarah know she was talking to the serial killer.
Can we chat a little bit about characters right now? Just because it's different now than what I thought it was months ago.
How's
Sure.
it different?
Yeah, if you don't have your character mentioned in your stride, it doesn't think about the character from the character box.
Now, I don't have any problem because, well, I was always a stickler for, get rid of those pronouns and do name, 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 name.
That
So
is
I
super
guess
helpful.
that's
Yeah. That's how it knows who you're bringing in. But if you have a pronoun, it'll pull any character possibly from the
Mhm.
character box. But right now, and this is, I just didn't think it worked that way. I just thought it would think about all the characters. It tries to only bring in the characters from. It's possible it could be in the beats themselves. Like if it's in the future beats, again, it reads all the beats, and it tries to look at the character box, but it tries to pull the characters out by the tags that you're giving them. So it is good to give it a cast list. And you could do that is in part of the beats header, or you could do it as the last beat, or per stride, even a cast list at the top of the stride. Cast list these people. And someone, Claire, perhaps said use things like not present or absent.
Yeah, that was me. I was literally about to say, oh, don't forget if you want them mentioned but not physically there.
Thank you.
Say that they're not
Absolutely.
there.
Yeah. Super important to add them in, but let the thing know they're not here. So they'll talk about them and they can pull information out of the character box that's there. What I didn't understand before was that there's stuff in the character box that it is not looking at. And that surprised me when I was working with my bare beats, and when I was working with write key details and those kinds of things, and working in a manner that didn't reference it directly, and all of a sudden it's making up stories. I'm like, why is it making up stories? It's because it's not seeing any of your characters.
Mhm.
If you're working in this weird sort of liminal descriptive improv way, unless you actually provided a character list, and you can put that into the outline per chapter summary. You can put a cast list there, write and
Yeah.
auto write and guided write will see that cast list in the outline and know what to do with who to pull out of your character box. This is going to be much more important later on when we have expanded character box that is just going to be amazing. I'm gonna, almost unlimited characters.
I'm excited about that. So yeah, so I learned this. I had 2 scenes back to back. It was 2 chapters back to back of the same story. And like this random character that is not in my story at all, like the story engine introduced 2 random characters. And then, well, sorry, it introduced a random character in one chapter. In the next chapter, it brought in somebody who shouldn't be there. That's when I learned the importance of getting rid of pronouns. And you'll see I have not cleaned up this Beats box. So you'll see a lot of pronouns. Cover your ears, those that have heard me say this a million times. I don't care how many times I have to say Logan's name in one sentence. I am still going to go through this and I will change up every single pronoun to be a proper name. Logan thought Logan's reflection didn't look like Logan had last year. I don't care. That was a stupid sentence, but put the name. It's very important. We think the sentence makes sense, and a lot of times it really does. But like I always say, don't give the AI the chance to be confused. Don't give it the chance to mess up. Just save yourself that hassle. Put the proper names here.
Look
can
at
see-
Logan's fan prophecy for a quick sec, because that's a point where it's okay to have pronouns, because the son and the father I would consider pronouns. There's like inferred pronouns if you start talking about teams. If you start talking about teams, if you're making real teams, make sure you put those in the character box as something. This
Or,
team consists of this, and this.
Or like
Yes.
if I had a team thing right here, I could also put in parentheses, the team consists of, and name those people out. So there's lots of alternatives too.
That is true.
It's specific, and this one is tricky. So honestly, this is one
But
of
it's a
those
quote.
things-
You want that
Right.
there. That's the quote. That's lift this out and stick it right in. That is Logan's prophecy. Everyone's misunderstanding what it means. That's great. You know, that's part of what we want.
This is also a good example of, you know what, I don't care. I know this prophecy is going to sound this way in my story. So at this point, I don't really care what the AI says about it. I'll change it to be the proper names just so it doesn't throw in anything it shouldn't. But I know in the end, I'm likely just going to have to do a manual edit just to make sure the wording is exactly the way I want it. It's one of those things, y'all keep in mind, don't spend an hour and a half trying, how can I get the AI to do this whenever you can spend 10 minutes on it in editing, okay? But going back to the pronoun things, so you see this one, a man, right? So think about this. This is an AI. I'm telling it, Sarah's walking into this coffee shop. She sees a man leaning against the counter. What is the AI going to do with this man right here?
It'll make up a man.
It is either going to make up a random man, or it's going to say, oh, wait, there's a man here, it's not named. Let me go to that character box real quick. Oh, here's a guy. Let me throw him into this scene right here.
Yeah.
So we want to put a proper name. Now this is, I just want to show y'all this for people that need this help in modifying their beats. So now let's say she's walking into a coffee shop. We've specified who that man is. Now in this story, guess what the AI is going to do with this beat? Just because of AI's tendency, what's going to happen? What's it going to do with this scene? I know y'all know this. Oh, come on now. The AI The AI is going to either have Sarah do this internal monologue about Michael, how much she hates him, what he did to her last summer, or Sarah and Michael are going to start having this conversation. Oh, hey, it's been so long since I've seen you, or whatever. The AI is just
or the porno music will start playing in the background. Boom chicka chicka.
Yeah. So something's going to happen, but let's say I'm writing a romance and this is the meet cute. They don't know each other. So that's an instance where I can say, God, we're getting so off track. I got to get right back after this.
Meet cute.
So I will say, Sarah and Michael do not know each other. Sarah and Michael do not talk to each other. So I've solved both problems here essentially. Will it be perfect? Maybe not. I don't know. But now I've given the AI a specific character, so it's not going to throw in somebody random. And I've also told it, hey, these characters shouldn't have a conversation. So that's ways y'all can start playing around. Like I mentioned, I think in this morning's class, if y'all have credits to burn at the end of the month that y'all know are going to expire,
burn
you don't
them.
have plans for them, experiment in this Beats box. I cannot talk enough about, we're getting off track. There's so much you can do. So
okay, let's talk about best prose a little bit.
My thoughts on best prose, like John said, it gets ideas. If y'all have seen me actually write out my beats, y'all know I get very specific. My beats, you know, it's nothing for my beats to be like this for each one. So I don't give it too much room to play, but I also like to give it just enough room to maybe throw in an idea, because I'm one that's open to ideas. I understand a lot of people aren't. Best prose, I'm just trying to give this highlight. Again, this was before the style change. Best prose, whereas most accurate opened the stride up by describing the setting. Best prose to me jumped more right into the action. So I always liked that for the openings, just getting right into things. So
And you can ask for in medias res at the top of a stride to sort of launch it into something happening. But with best prose, it's like it cares about the prose more than it cares about the story. It's going to try to make it sound good and feel right in the text that's being written, but it's not caring as much about the beats that you have there. And if it goes far enough away from the next stride that starts, the prose is going to take precedence. It's going to follow wherever it went. So if you use best prose, it's better really if you pause and continue and edit up, make sure you fix it stride by stride so that it knows it goes in the direction that you want it to go in. If it went too far, yank it out, rip stuff out, pull it back. If you want to keep that stuff around, that's fine. Put it in another doc, but rip it out so that it follows the storyline the way you want it, and then bring that other stuff back in on the next edit.
And you said, I'm sorry if you just said this and I missed it. You said you felt best prose worked best, like not worrying so much about the beats, but worrying about editing this and continuing, correct?
Yeah, best prose is going to follow what's in the prose box more than what's in the beats. And if it goes past a stride or two that you haven't edited and it's gone off in a different direction, it keeps going in that direction or making up brand new stuff. And it just takes suggestions from the beats rather than, oh yeah, we got to go back and start writing this correctly again. Most accurate is going to run back, pull back, and keep writing and ignore that little crappy wrap up that it stuck at the end that you didn't like. You were going to get rid of anyways. Most accurate will ignore those little tail ends that you're going to probably be deleting later anyway. So it's if you like to just let the whole thing run and come back and edit it later, you will probably be happier with most accurate just because it's going to stick to the story the way you wrote it out. Nicole, do you work that way with just letting everything run?
I'm one that just, yeah, I let the chapter go. I pick a model, I have my favorite, so I just click that model and I let it do the whole chapter. Now this next
But you don't
book,
like most accurate because it doesn't sound right.
Now this next book I'm going to be doing what you and I talked about in that other video we did where you walked me through the ellipses method, and I'm going to
Yeah.
be doing my entire story in one box right here using your ellipses method. So
Nice.
I do see myself pausing then just to keep, do a better effort of keep making sure everything stays on track. We'll see how it goes.
Of
Would
course,
you
the
stick
problem
with
with,
yeah.
Sorry, John, I was just very quickly, the problem with not going back and editing out that wrap up is that most accurate will unwrite it before it keeps writing, thus wasting your credits. But as if you delete it, it'll pick up from where it should have stopped off without the wrap up.
Okay, I haven't
If that
seen
makes
that yet,
sense.
but that makes sense. So it actually tries to pull itself back if they did everything.
Yeah, I had it doing that. Yeah, I had it
Then
doing
it
that
writes
yesterday. It would
to
try
get
and,
back
yeah,
to the
undo.
point.
Yeah,
Now,
it
see,
doesn't always, but
that's interesting. I noticed again, whenever the session I was remembering, oh, they made that style box change. I had ran the first try to most accurate, then the best prose, and I noticed most accurate for once actually didn't do that wrap up. So I thought they had
Nice.
improved that as well to where it wasn't focused so much on wrapping up. Are you still seeing that pretty much all the time, Claire?
Can we pull
The
down the
wrap
bottom
up?
of your most accurate?
pasta.
Can we look at the bottom of your most accurate stride here?
Wrap up.
A little wrap up, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
It's not as bad as it was. It's a lot better.
And again,
And
empty
then it
style
tries to
box too.
unwrite.
So, sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you, Claire. What was that?
I was just agreeing that, yeah, mini wrap up, not as bad as it was, but it's still trying to do it.
Yeah. One thing too, I want to talk about real quick. I meant to say earlier, how many times have y'all ran a beat or hear somebody complain, no matter what I do, my beats are right and it's still going off track? Again, the pronouns could be one thing, but something else, y'all, is the style and genre box. So remember, Prose is also checking those, the genre and style box. That's why we harp on changing those up per chapter. So these beats look right, okay? I know the scene is pretty much going to play out like this. I know this is a fantasy scene, more sword and sorcery type genre. But let's say you're writing, and I always use the romance and horror because they're so different. But let's say I'm writing a horror story. So I have horror in my genre, right? Because I'm writing a horror story. This is chapter 1. So if I'm doing, I know I always use the same examples. I'm sorry, my imagination sucks.
No, but if you put horror in the chapter 1, it's scary from
Right.
chapter 1, and you don't necessarily
So-
want it to be scary.
Like I swear, y'all, when the AI messes up, 9 times out of, let's go down to 8 times out of 10, it's our fault for wording somewhere, okay? So if I have horror in that genre, there's no mention of horror, there's no mention of killing. Well, there's a mention of killing right here, but no killing actually happens, right? But if I got horror in my genre box and my style box says extreme violence, bloody depictions of gore,
You'll get that.
and people will say, well, I didn't have it in the beats. No, but you had it in your genre and style box. You told okay, think of it this way. The beats are you telling the AI, this is what happens in the scene. Your style, this is how it happens. Think of it that way if that helps you.
And we
The
don't
other
know
thing
what it
to
looks like on the
yeah.
back end, but I would bet the recency bias comes in there because I'm going to guess style is one of the last things that gets passed to the AI.
It is exactly the
Yes,
last
it's the
thing.
last one. Yeah.
I can't remember if it's this box or
And
no,
so the
it's-
last line of style is the most important.
yeah, that's why y'all see me put my stuff on different lines so I can easily rearrange or find one and delete or something. So keep that in mind. Just
And
because there's
if you use tropes, giving
Oh.
it the entire trope, which is supposed to happen over an entire chapter,
Yeah,
enemies to lovers, you want that to happen in this chapter. Great. But if you put that into the genre as a trope, it will do it at every stride. And
Yep.
there'll be enemies and there'll be lovers, and there'll be enemies and there'll be lovers, and there'll be enemies and there'll be lovers. So you
started
gotta
having
kind of do it.
feelings for her enemy.
Yeah. So make enemies, 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 enemies to lovers, 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 lovers. So you got to swap out that genre box to the stride to really get it to work the way you want. If you think about it on a book level, oh, this book is enemies to lovers. Well, it's going to start on chapter 1, stride 1, enemies to lovers, switcheroo for you. And you don't want that. What's the next one after best prose?
Balanced. So
Balance is new.
Yeah. So balanced is the GPT-4 Turbo. So it's less costly. It's I haven't played around with enough to verify this, but it should ideally listen to your beats like most accurate does. I do know I don't like to write in first person. I don't even like to read first person, but Jen
It
said,
likes to write
Nicole-
first person.
Jen said, Nicole, go put first person heavy dialogue. And I tell you what, using those two things with balanced and Ouroboros resulted in some of actually probably the best prose I have ever gotten in Sudowrite. So that might be, if you're open to changing up your tense and stuff, that might be something else you want to play around with. I'm telling you what, how many times have we struggled with trying to get that deep POV? And Jen, if Jen's on, she can testify to this, I think, 'cause she's the one that pointed out to me, whenever you're telling it to write in first person, it really brings in some really good emotional depth and just takes it, hits it out, knocks it out of the ballpark compared to when I tell it to write third person and I feel it's really lacking and I got to do a lot of editing to make it good. So I can't say much on balanced. That's just my thoughts. I know this is the default model now because people were
Now-
shocked at most accurate it's cost. So it does default to this.
If you like this a lot, balanced, it has a different name in write settings. So point that out. GPT-4 Turbo.
Yep.
If you're trying to use the same model to edit with and use write as you used to generate the chapter.
So I don't really have anything else to add on balanced. What do you think, John?
That's where I am on it right now. People are enjoying it. The fact you actually have some feedback about it being really good at certain things at first person and deep POV. That's amazing. I tend to focus on the cheaper models just because there's more opportunity to, oh, what do I do to make this work? Let's jump to fastest.
Okay.
Because
let me find this one.
we talk about using it. Oh yeah. We
Go
talk
ahead.
about using fastest as a a place to hang it, it's almost like it's almost like an outline, but a very useful outline. It feels speedy as you read it.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Not only does it come out quick, but you can easily sort of move through it. Do we want to talk a little bit about what? So again, you'd have no style changes here,
Correct. Nothing in the
um,
style box.
and we're
Okay.
getting third person past tense
Would
out
you-
of everybody so far.
Let's see. Third person past tense. Yep, third person past tense.
So you notice that best prose has shorter paragraphs.
Yeah.
I think you're also going to get shorter paragraphs out of fastest.
This fastest came out pretty darn good. But yeah, third
Yeah.
person past tense.
Okay, that's good to know that the whole thing, really, unless you really specify a first person POV, you're not gonna get that.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, fastest is cheaper. Look at what it cost us.
Ooh, Best Prose was cheaper on that, I guess because of the short output.
Yes.
But still
Short
fast.
output and possibly small input, like you don't have a ton of stuff coming in from characters.
Well, I mean, I'm using the same stride, so that is kind of
So I don't.
weird,
Did you
but
do fastest?
yep. Oh,
I don't think so.
oh no, I haven't done fastest yet. Sorry, that's terrible. I'm looking at.
Yeah. So that was balanced that you liked right now.
Oh, yeah, good idea. Good catch. Okay, another point for balanced. Let me mark that as a matter of fact. So yeah, and I agree with John about, fastest, just really reading at a very fast pace. I always tell people it's really good for those fight scenes, just something you want to sound intense. And also on the opposite end of the spectrum, if you have this scene you absolutely need in your story, you can't think of ways to just improve it and you feel it reads kind of slow, boring, possibly boring the reader, use it with fastest. To me, it gives the most dialogue out of any of them. And I generally always like what it gives me. Now, the thing with fastest, the downfall is I normally fill up my beats box or get pretty close to it. And I have found fastest will kind of almost condense everything, maybe even actually skipping over a couple of plot points. So it just kind of glances at everything, covers it briefly, and then moves on. And to me, that's why I like pairing fastest with Ouroboros, because Ouroboros really digs into the scene and the stride and everything. And I think they just meld perfectly together.
I wish they would give us the creativity button slider for this. That's one of the other things about key detail. Sorry, the whole right thing is that we have the ability to choose creativity. And I keep thinking of creativity now as a speed of plot advancement. So if you're down at least, you'll get a very nice sort of drawn out conversation about the characters waking up and having breakfast together. What do they talk about? And if you have most, you're going to have the flying monkeys come in and steal somebody and take off. So that creativity slider is really kind of neat to work with because it's like, no, just hold back and let's stretch this out. And you can apply it to any of those prose models. Here, we're kind of doing that a little bit depending on the prose model. Like fastest kind of bounces through the plot. Most accurate will just be just sort of sitting there and pontificating about what everything looks like. And best prose will say, oh, is this fun to read? Is it getting boring? Better move on.
Yeah. So fastest was not the best it's had, but it's pretty well. Considering I still haven't fully fleshed out my beats right there for that.
Yeah, it's sometimes I feel like it's I don't know. I'm gonna have to play around a little bit more with it. When people complain about the first stride being everything, sometimes that doesn't bother me. It feels like it needs to think about the whole thing before it goes back and writes each stride, and Fastest kind of does that, or has done it in the past. Unfiltered is cheap, and it's not just for sex, violence, and horror. And unlike what it says there, you can use first person as long as you have a hyphen between the word first and the word person.
Yeah. And I love Unfiltered because of its style. And I swear, every time I say that and try to show it off in class, it disappoints me. But Unfiltered's natural style is very close, very similar to my own natural writing style. That's really why I love it so much. So play around with those again, trying to find something that really matches that, something that's going to give you what you want with less editing in the end, you know? So it may be a combination of finding that model that listens to what you need, but also one that gives you your style that you want. For unfiltered, y'all see it. Should have scrolled down faster, but you might see it pause a lot and it takes a few minutes and then it has to kick back in. That's because Sudowrite had to do background prompting. Unfiltered is Weaver from Answer Tech, and its regular output is very short. So you can see it's paused here and it's going to pick back up.
So it's
So
like
it's
doing
natural-
3 mini strides
Right.
in
Yeah.
every stride. And that third mini stride, they have to tell it to wrap it up, or it'll just sort of be a cliffhanger-y kind of thing. I wish they would just leave that cliffhanger-y kind of thing, but whatever.
I actually liked the way it was whenever we first started, you know, playing with it and everything. It seems like something got changed there. But
Well, they fixed it so that that third one is it does a little wrap up, so it sounds a little bit more like all the other ones, but it's like, I don't want it to sound like the other ones. I want it to hang.
Mhm. Yeah, I really liked the initial stuff first. I'm just kind of reading over. I don't know what y'all think about this, but not bad. But I swear, every time I try to show it off, it's just like, nope, not doing it.
It's the singing frog.
And
Unfiltered with kid stuff is kind of amazing because it will go into juvenile humor. So you'll get shit humor and farts, and it kind of sounds like a kid the way that it writes stuff, and it doesn't pull it into sex unless you're asking for that, or violence unless you're asking for that. So you can ask for and be very creative with the kinds of things that you're looking for with Unfiltered. It is essentially that. It doesn't have a filter that's saying naughty, naughty, naughty. And so it to me, it has a really interesting voice for kids' books.
it's also really good at nonfiction. So I know John has played around with trying to get Story Bible to do nonfiction, and he was showing me some output, and I wasn't impressed with what it had done because it still kept trying to turn everything into that little fiction kind of viewpoint, you know?
Yeah.
But Unfiltered, I tell you what, putting nonfiction or memoir or whatever in their genre box and then having it, so all the other boxes, like if you do synopsis or outline, it's going to lean towards, you know, fiction. You're going to have to manually do all that to make it right. But once you get to that outline, so I could have, if I'm writing I can't think of anything, but just have your nonfiction outline as it should be formatted in the outline box. And it'll generate beats very nicely for the nonfiction style, and it'll
Okay,
write
that's
it
just
even
beats,
better.
right?
Right,
That's
yeah.
beats itself. Beats itself is 3.5, and it's fine with generating nonfiction beats.
Mhm.
Turning that into prose,
And Unfiltered does
Unfiltered
them.
is useful. Yeah.
Correct,
I
yeah.
think I think Instruct might as well be pretty good at that. Again, it's these kinds of things where you start looking for words or for ways to address the style, and then figuring out, oh, okay, if you ask for lyric, what does that mean, and what does it mean to the different models? Somebody, Goliath is gonna just spit out a poem or a song if you ask for a lyric voice. Ouroboros or Goliath or most accurate and possibly balanced, it'll spit out something that's internally lyric. It'll rhyme words together in the sort of the back ends of words without making it specifically a poem.
That might be one of those changes too, like lyric, because of course you think lyric, you think like song lyrics and stuff like that.
Sure.
And if you wanted to do the voice, I would say like lyrical voice instead of
Lyrical voice, you could try that.
lyrical.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things definitely play around with.
But like Best
One-
Prose isn't going to do that as far as
Oh,
I care. And scripted, Best Prose is, 50-50. Is it going to write a script, or is it going to create the script or talk about a script writer or something? It'll take weird choices sometimes.
and don't be afraid to do, like if you have up here, write in script format and it's not listening, don't be afraid to put those instructions on every single beat too. Write in script format right here in every single one. That's not going to mess stuff up, y'all. To see if reinforcement will help.
Or fix that first stride, make sure it looks like a script the way you want it to look. And then as it keeps going, it'll understand what you're doing. Another weird thing to think about is if you wanted to have it brainstorm for you a series report, or if you wanted it to brainstorm a synopsis or a deep dive into a particular character, you can ask for in the style a character report or a synopsis report or a series report, and maybe give it a little bit of information about what that would look like. But you can use the prose generator to do things in a much larger way. I can get 100,000 words inside a prose generator box without breaking the system. I
Another
can only
thing-
get 2,000 of the beats, but yeah.
Another thing too, and this reminds me, I forgot to mention something on best prose. So for best prose, in my opinion, it works best with lean beats. So again, if y'all seen me work with mine, I tend to really make mine lengthy, adding in all those details. But best prose does amazingly well with just giving it that room to play. So your characters are here doing this. Maybe you throw in a line of dialogue and then you just let the AI do what it wants. So to me,
So
it
I
does really
tend to
well
work
with
with
that.
lean beats, and unfiltered's pretty good with them, and essentially trying to get it to improv between my characters. And that's Airbros does amazing things with those. But again, if it's not what you want, it's annoying, right?
Right.
And that's why people really will focus down on most accurate, because they feel sure that it's going to do what they want. And balance now, maybe more too.
And there is ways, as much as I love unfiltered, Manon recently was telling me, because before we kept saying, look, in unfiltered, just put 2 beats at a time, remove the rest from your box, use the ellipses method. And Manon kept saying, hey, something's different. You know, I put all of my beat details in there and it followed it perfectly. Well, she mentioned she put all her details in, so she had quite a bit. And today in class, it all finally kind of clicked into place for me, because we just had 2 beats going and unfiltered was not listening at all. Well, guess what? Thickening up those beats, it listened really well. Also with our new style headers, which I will be handing out in the Discord as soon as my document is finished. I'm not finished putting all the stuff in there yet, but a new style header that I tried out, I thought it did really well. So I'm thinking now, instead of having to mess with the ellipses, really, really making your beats as thick as possible and not giving the AI that room to veer. I think that is going to be very helpful too for unfiltered. I need to play around with it more, confirm, but like I said, Manon tested it. She liked filling up and said it listened just fine. So that will be the opposite of best prose, where I said best prose works best with the thin beats. Unfiltered, make them thick, put in all of those details. That might make your 15 beats, 5 beats or something like that, but it should actually follow them really well, like that. So that's something to keep in mind. Let's see where
Cool.
we're at for, all right, so most accurate, best prose.
Look at
That
fastest,
was-
424.
That is crazy cheap, because it didn't, I need to check the word count. And unfiltered was, so about half the cost of, no, not quite.
Half the cost of Turbo.
Yeah, I was thinking,
Ish.
looking at best pros, but yeah. So let's see, for 400 credits, let's see what fastest gave us.
Oh, it says it right now. You've selected
490
it.
words. Oh,
Yeah.
that's right, yeah. So that is actually almost a word for credit, 491 words, 424 credits. So you got more words than used credits.
Wow.
And that's using all your Story Bible input
Mm-hmm.
that we've been using for each of these things. So you can kind of see how the models really do. And the other weird thing about that model is that this is not GPT-4 32K. This is GPT-4. Maybe it's GPT-4 Turbo or something, but it's not the most expensive one. A lot of plugins, my plugin specifically, will use GPT-4 32K, which is even more expensive, but we don't have access to them any other way other than through the plugins or through GPT subscription.
And something you can do with fastest.
Is reuse it as beats.
Yeah. And just make
Yeah.
sure you format it, because otherwise all of these are going to be a beat. I mean, if you're open to that, hey, as cheap as it is, actually, well, it'll take too long. I'll run this and let y'all know how it comes out. I'm going to run it with all of these actually as beats. Yeah, that's what I'll do. I have to
Do
redo
it.
that.
It's going to take like 5 seconds.
Okay, well, I don't remember what.
This is the
Yeah,
biggest
close
rabbit
enough.
hole. Okay, so we've gone on an hour. If anyone has to drop, I understand. We understand. It's okay. We're making a recording. We are putting it up. You can kind
Yeah.
of get back at it and take a look at the rest of this if we don't. We're going to keep going. But if you are, if we're driving you nuts because it's 2 o'clock and we haven't gotten through fastest yet.
That's weird.
No,
What do I did click fastest, right?
I'm pretty sure
Yeah, as fast as it's
it's
going. Yeah,
it's fast as it's going. Yeah, you are on fastest.
goodness.
So I think of this as a snowflake generation, that you've created something and then you're using it as the beats. It's also very similar to how you might work if you generated a script, edited the script, and then brought it back in to flesh it out.
I do notice, let's see, let me double check. Yeah, so it's repeating the first paragraph on every single stride. It's it's the exact same paragraph. So that's kind of weird. I'll have to check that, but it's again, it could be something in my beats.
Is there a number? Like,
Actually, it's putting this at the beginning of every stride. So it's kind of weird. Well, it's counting it all as beats. I don't know. But from that, what was it? 491 words. 491 words of prose gave over 3,000 words, and the cost was again
3,000.
word per credit. So that's something you can also do to fastest. How we talk about it kind of skips over things. We'll turn around and take that prose again after editing, making sure you like it. Slip that into the beats box. All right, where are we at here?
But we got Goliath next.
Oh, one thing I wanted to mention, sorry. One thing I
Yeah.
wanted to mention about Unfiltered, you talked about like it was good for the children's books for like that kid humor. It's also does the best for like if you like the sarcasm like I do, Unfiltered
Yes.
does that really well, y'all. So go ahead, Goliath.
Goliath. Goliath has humor. Goliath has a certain kind of, again, if you ask for lyric, you're going to get poetry. Most accurate does that sometimes. And if you're looking for poems or kids rhyming chapter books or something, Most Accurate and Goliath are pretty good at doing it. Unfiltered can do it as well. Best Prose tends to override and actually create more prosy work. I'm not sure what Balance would do. Fastest sometimes. But yeah, Goliath, I have a more of a penchant for Ouroboros, but Goliath is also very nice at giving you something that has like, I think I had something about a kid's jacket, like caution is left in kids' jackets as they drop them off or something. It has a very nice way of saying things.
I'm looking at this balanced prose. I'm noticing it's doing a lot of, I don't even know what you'd call this, but a lot of like the middle of the sentence type stuff. You know, there's always this little explanation in between the commas and everything. It seems to be doing that a lot. So if you're not a fan of that, I know there's
Beware.
words for that.
Unless there may be some way to dampen it.
Yeah. Again, we have that empty style box. So it's, you know, I'm not giving it anything, but just its base style is leaning towards that quite a bit.
Yeah.
I'm
So you're
really
saying we're
liking the output though.
good. We are spending a lot of credits on this in order to sort of do this and illustrate it, and that's why we're making it available to you afterwards. So you don't have to spend the credits to reproduce this kind of thing. And this is the kind of thing that we kind of need to do every now and then, because the models change. Either the underlying technology is updated and everything is a little different than it was before, or like the most recent work on beats, which are much better than before, the generated beats people are much happier with, and now what we're getting out of the beats is more similar across the models. So we're going to run Goliath, and what are we expecting from Goliath? We're expecting just a bit of sarcasm, a bit of snarkiness, even without much change here. Let's see if it actually delivers our promise.
So I like Goliath, I think was our favorite, right, Claire, in the hot and spicy this morning? Was
Yeah,
Goliath
I
the
think
one
so.
that? Okay.
Mm.
A lot of character descriptions being brought in quite a bit. And I think we also noticed that in the class this morning, like if you have that character, or if you have wording in your character description, Goliath is likely to bring that in.
Does it bring it in word for word, or does it give you something to?
I don't think, no, I don't think it was word for word.
Okay.
It was actually a decent enough little twist, just some mild editing needed, but pronoun usage is different.
Ah. Now, is this specifically
I
in
don't know.
character
I
box?
think I've noticed this before, though. It tends to lean towards there. So maybe Goliath might be one you would need to specify in your character box.
Okay.
But I could have sworn, well, I don't think I've say a male vampire, so that could be it.
That's what I'm thinking. And when I see that, it just looks like it's being very clear that no,
Yeah.
this hasn't been determined yet.
So that'd be one thing to keep in mind with Goliath.
And sometimes you get these weird, like that hashtag response.
Yeah.
So that's
There's another one that it does. I can't remember what it is. Oh, something like writer's response or
yeah. But the response often just kind of continues the story. It's not always a real response or a description or a evaluation. So Goliath was kind of expensive. It's the top of the experimental.
all right. Have we given all our thoughts on Goliath?
I think so. That unless you want to show something that you really are happy with Goliath, again, it may be that you need to see that snarkiness that when you ask for it, you get it. Sometimes you can get that with unfiltered. Sometimes most accurate just doesn't give it to you.
Yeah, I love Unfiltered for that sarcasm. Goliath was supposed to be funny, so I was looking forward to having it here. But I noticed when I tried it on my humorous story, actually it just turned everything into a pun. So whereas Unfiltered tested with that story was just nailed the dry sarcasm the characters had and all of that irony, Goliath just like everything was a pun.
I think
with
we need to
Goliath.
I think we need to work out what Goliath needs in order to give it the right thing, because it gets really, like I said, you ask for lyric or lyrical and it writes a poem, and you're asking for some kind of humor and it's giving you puns. So I think that there's just, I don't know, we have to figure out what the special words, there must be magic words for Goliath that will make it give you the kind of output you're looking for. You were asking for sarcasm and you were getting puns?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I think it'd be worth spending an hour. I don't want to do this, but any of our other ambassadors, teachers, or just one of our experienced users, I think it'd be worth doing an hour-long session just covering one model at a time, just to kind of find out those tricks. I nominate you to do this, John, because I think you'd be perfect for it. But yeah, I think it'd be great. Okay, this hour we're focusing on most accurate. What is most accurate giving us? What does it do best with? What does it really suck at? How can we fix what it sucks at?
I think that sounds good.
Yeah,
Or-
I've been working with balance mainly, and I found it amazing that you can just change the heading a little bit or a few words, and all of a sudden it gives you totally different output. And if you put in the instructions, you want lots of dialogue, you get lots of dialogue, and it just seems to be really well done. But from week to week, when I've used it, sometimes you get really bad results. And then 2 weeks later, on another chapter, you get great results. So I'm still kind of confused, but so far Balanced has been my favorite, but
So we
gotta
are
take it with a grain
working
of
on
salt.
a changing background, right? Not only are we making changes, not only is Sudowrite making changes, but what they're pulling in is getting upgraded. So every 2 weeks, something gets upgraded and it ripples through the system. And it's good if we're aware of it. It's good if we can notice it. And it's great if once we notice it, we can kind of know how to pivot ourselves to get back to what we want. Some writers will work in such a way that they generate the entire book in a day or two before they go back and edit in order to maintain the voice that they get right then. So it's not like it's uneven. And then you have to try to fix that. I know it's hard to work that way, but it does require you to kind of plan it out more in advance. But then when you go and you initiate all of that, you spend the time, it spends the money, it spends whatever, doing it all at the same time, so that the result that comes back is more even across the entirety of your book. The first
Oh, it didn't finish.
1,000 words.
1052.
The first stride in Ouroboros will give you 1,000 words. How many credits? 580.
580 credits.
Two words per credit. Ouroboros does amazing things on the first stride. The second stride, third stride, fourth stride, if you continue, doesn't give you that. It goes back to 230, 240 for about the same credits. I love first strides from Ouroboros and how you stitch those together after you generate them as individual first strides. That's going to be a trick that I haven't figured out yet. But yeah, how do you do things in Ouroboros that really take advantage of its strengths? Can we look a little bit at how this reads?
Yeah, honestly, this is not a good example of it. I don't
Okay.
like this. So I'm going to go to one that I know came out good. It's one that made me fall in love with Ouroboros. And I think John and I are in agreement on this. The narrative style of Ouroboros, I know for me, it really, really draws me in. Wait, that's not the one. This one. So I love Arrow. We did notice that it repeats. So somebody else pointed this out to me because I didn't think it actually repeated, but it did when I actually read through all of the prose. So it's almost like when I have all of these beats right here, it's kind of like it never quite gets through them all. It only gets through half of them. So that's something to keep in mind.
She's
Yes,
talking
I
about the first stride. Are you,
No,
Nicole?
just like I clicked Ouroboros just like I normally do, and I let it go through the whole thing until it stopped. Never paused it or anything. But I found it never actually got to these ending beats. It never wrote about these ending beats or anything. So I think Ouroboros is going to be one of those that works better with fewer beats, like you said.
Yeah.
John Troy, I would never cut
The
this down.
other thing I was finding the other day was that if I had enumerated beats,
Mhm.
it would give me enumerated prose, and it was really, really poor. I was unhappy. Like, what is it doing? I don't understand what it's doing. This looks fine. This is actually looking like prose, right? But what it was giving me a week ago was this weird numbered thing. Like, it was just sort of expanding each beat in a crappy way. I got rid of those numbers. It went back to giving me 1,000 words on that first stride. I keep thinking of ways to either I got 12 beats. I could make that into sort of 3 sections, a beginning, a middle, and an end, and sort of reduce those beats into their own one stride and run each of those thirds by itself and see if I can stitch those together. Or yeah, if you can run the entire summary as a single stride, I get 1,000 words and then just sort of make it bigger using the right functions. So Ouroboros was 878.
The beat header with Ouroboros and, really beefing up those beats to see if it changes, or are you just kind of experimenting with it as you're going along?
I'm experimenting at this point. I don't have a huge thing other than the fact that I notice that sometimes I get that 1,000 words in that first beat and it's pretty predictable. And I keep feeling like, okay, well, maybe I would just put the summary in there as that first beat, second beat, and ellipses, run it, see what it gives me. It tends to give me a lot of information at the beginning, and then it becomes more jumpy plot-wise as it moves through those 1,000 words, and then go in there and just sort of expand the more jumpy parts to make it all into like 3,000 or 2,500 words for a chapter. Or try to chop it into 3 pieces, run each one by itself, and then try to connect them together myself. I feel like I've had better luck with just running that whole summary, almost like don't even make beats. But I want to try beats now because everyone's saying that the beats are different now and much better. Have you run beats recently, BP?
Yes, but I've never done it with Ouroboros, and I haven't really experimented with the experimental language models. So I've been, I guess, since the first of the year, I've been really trying to figure out, should I beef up beats using this model, vice versa, something else. But I'm finding that I get better prose now if I'm very specific in my beat headers, and if I need to make sure to tell it like on beats 1, 3, the odd
Yep.
number, so that it's not foreshadowing, it's not doing certain things. And I liked Best Prose for the longest time, but I've recently, for maybe about the last week or so, really liked Balanced. That's been my favorite. And maybe it's because it's more my style. So I hear my voice when I read it back. So I like that about it. But I haven't played
That's great.
experimental stuff, and I want to.
It's cheap. You can try it out, right? And especially if it's close to the end. I would love it if you would try running a summary as a single beat, a chapter summary as a single beat with a ellipses as the second beat for that stride in Ouroboros in one of your projects, a new doc, maybe one that you're already happy with.
Okay.
Just to see what it does. I think you'll get 700 to 1200 words out of running it that way, and just see. I'm interested. I think what it does is the first half of it is really dense and sort of beautiful, and then it kind of starts bouncing through the plot. And then what do you do with that after that? I'm not too sure.
John, you mentioned writing one beat and then an ellipsis as the second beat. What do you mean by that?
You want to show, Nicole?
I mean, you keep talking about ellipsis, and I
3 dots.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
And
continue on. Okay.
yeah, so that's ellipses beats, and you can use those to sort of like if it actually hits an ellipses beat, it'll just keep going. So it says, okay, you've started writing, keep writing in the same manner. It continues, the story continues. But you can use ellipses beats to remove stuff or hide stuff in the beats. Like if you don't want to give away the ending of your beats in the chapter until you get there, you can sort of copy them out somewhere safe and then put those ellipses in for all the future beats. If you have a really heavy beat and you need 2000 words for your stride, you can use ellipses beats to kind of keep it like a window of what's going on as you move through, render, generate prose for that beat, pause it, make those current ones ellipses, and bring in the new beats for the next chunk. And
I've used it as like, let's just say, if I had nice details here, but I didn't, just in one beat, and I didn't know how I wanted that second beat that I know is going to be attached to that same stride, I'll put the ellipses here just to act as my second beat for that stride, and then just continue as normal. So I find it helps me if I have this really good opening beat, but I want it to carry out and I don't have those specific ideas. Like you said, that just lets it continue. So I found that's very helpful for me, just to make that scene, that stride longer, because I know I don't want, again, just pretending this is a beat and this is a beat. So I know
that would
I
be a
don't
single
want this
paragraph,
beat.
not the numbers and not the extra
Right, yeah.
paragraphs.
So just pretending this is a beat, so we know that's going to be one stride. Now,
Okay.
I don't want this beat to come into this beat and be the stride. So that's why I find this is helpful. I know this opening setup, I know how I want it to say or do, but I don't know the rest of it. I don't know how, like you said, I don't know how I want that scene to end before it jumps into that next stride. So this is very helpful to do that. It continues along those lines before proceeding and just giving me a little bit more room to play.
Another trick you can use instead of ellipses on something like that is an instruction to continue and stop writing in mid-sentence or in mid-action or in mid-dialogue, in mid-thought, so that it tries to not do the wrap up. It tries to overwrite to the point where it stops writing like it's not done yet, and then the next stride will pick up where it stopped writing.
Did you see what you wanted to see with the Ouroboros output?
This is the one you liked, right? Because you didn't
This is
like the
the-
other
yeah.
one. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. This is more like, this is what Ouroboros typically gives. It draws in. So we switched up. Of course, this is third person past tense. And then I switched it up in another stride to be first person. And that came out like really good. Just to me, Ouroboros, has that just that thing that I like as a reader. I don't want those really lush descriptions, but I do want the vivid details. I don't know if that's probably a whatever you call it. Words are hard for me. But I don't want to hear about the trees' leaves glistening under the sun, the dew, I don't want all those little details, but at the same time, set that scene for me, but use simple descriptions. If that, I guess maybe that makes sense.
It's
And
like it's
to me,
between
Ouroboros,
fastest and best prose, where best
yes,
prose really
yeah.
gives you the best stuff sometimes.
So this
Um,
draws me, Ouroboros really draws me into the scene and sets it for me without being overly descriptive. That's what I like so much about it.
I get really cool similes out of it. The metaphor stuff, if you ask for it, will come out really nice. I love described metaphor, but that's a different thing.
Mhm. I'm actually going to do a plug-in to use Ouroboros
Can
as a
you give us
describe.
nice.
Okay, so we did Ouroboros. I can't offer anything on these two other than I don't like Mythomax because to me it sounds like most accurate. And Mixtral is like don't dislike it, but there's nothing that really draws me toward it either ways. But so that's my only 2 cents about these next two.
But let's generate them just to have them in the doc that you're sharing with people. You'll notice that died in the middle of the sentence, in the middle of a word.
And it does that a lot.
I like that. So that's another reason why I think. But yeah. Ouroboros, you showed us some stuff that looked pretty good and looked pretty lengthy each stride. So maybe I should bite my tongue on this, but before I was getting really short second and third strides.
Keep in mind too, that one that I showed you that I like, that was good. That's a horror short story. So that was the entire story in one chapter right there. So those beats were very all encompassing, like very
So they were very
broad
long
description.
beats.
Not very long. They were only 1 sentence beats, but again, just breaking down a whole entire story right there in the chapter. So it was, describing a whole setup and action and all of that within each beat.
And did you have wrap up tails on each of those strides, or was it ellipses, or
I would
what was
have,
your
no, I didn't have anything like that, just normal SE generated beats,
okay?
adjusted to make sure, it told the story the way I wanted to tell it with the tragic ending. And of course, it never actually in the prose got to the ending. That was the downfall. So this is Mythomax. Lots of adjectives.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Nicole, that this has a lot of that flowery description that you just do not like. You like your straightforward,
That's
like
right.
describe it with meaning. Don't flower it.
Tell me the tree is 7 feet tall and green, okay? That's it.
Right? It was a maple. It was old. That's good. I don't want to know that it's glistening. I don't want to know that it shines in the sunlight.
I don't want to know that it cast its shade over her, making her feel safe and isolated from the world at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't give me the flowers. I just want it described.
So it did do a good job pulling, the prophecy in
The actual
directly.
quote, yeah.
Mhm.
And again, the price is let's take a look at the price. It's like if you're looking for most accurate type stuff, maybe you would be okay with that because look at that price.
120,
Probably 230 words,
438.
438, 4 words per, almost 3 or 4 words per credit.
And
So
this
there's
is
a
what-
lot to play with that VP. If you want to try these things and give them simple changes, nudges. We haven't done any nudges to the styles here. This is out of the box what it does. And because these are so cheap, you could run this a few times and change the style slightly to see what it does to this.
I'm the opposite
Especially
of
when it's
Nicole. I kind of like all this purple.
good.
This
Then
is,
you're
I'm thinking, yeah, this is great.
Oh, it gave him, okay, so Mistral gave him this weird name. Like, okay. That won't work because he actually killed Dracula, so can't use Vlad. And it brought in the prophecy as well. Let's see. So yeah, do what John said, play around with these cheaper ones, see how you can manipulate the style. It's on
And
par with Mytho.
I
Manipulate
would
the
think
style. and manipulate how the beats are structured.
How many?
313. So
Okay.
in reality, it's a little bit more than Mythomax.
But yeah, Mixtrol's a little bit more than Mythomax. I thought it was more like most accurate in terms of the feel.
I say I feel that way about Mythomax, but Mixtrol, like I said, it's just nothing really stands out to me, like catching my attention. This is horrible or this is great.
Right.
It's just one of those that I would use if I needed to, but it's not one I would go to.
Try it for any kind of report or any kind of maybe nonfiction would work well with Mixtrol. Maybe it's just in my own head that instruct sounds like an instruction manual. And so if you're looking for that dryness, you might get it.
Hey, look, you want to see the profile picture I made for John? I call him the mad scientist of Sudowrite. I'm determined to get him to change his Discord username. I even told it, look, it's for a Discord user. In class this morning, I was putting mixed cadence in my style box, and somebody said, hey, how is that different from vary your sentence structure? I'm like, I don't think there's a difference. There is a difference, y'all. And these are the little things we mean when we say experiment, especially talk with ChatGPT. There is nobody that understands the AI, which Sudowrite is an AI program. There's nobody that understands the AI like another AI program. So go into chat and ask for clarification on things. So we asked it, what do mixed cadence and vary sentence structure mean? So mixed cadence is to where it will switch up the type of sentences. So long sentence, then a short sentence. So to just vary those sentence lengths, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we thought they were the same, but no, vary sentence structure means that actual sentence, the structure of, just like it says, you would think that would have clicked, but just like it says, it changes the structure of a sentence. So not necessarily the length and alternating the lengths like mixed cadence does, but instead, like this is the best description right here for it. So, you
Into
can
the
start.
room she walked.
So I think I'm actually going to start putting both of these in my style box just to kind of see. Of course, Unfiltered writes similar to this anyways, or at least with the mixed cadence, but I'm going to play around. So I just thought y'all might be interested in also doing these two or one or the other and understanding the difference in them.
So one that we used that's just very much like mixed cadence was use long and short sentences to punctuate. But mixed
Except
cadence is much faster.
Cadence isn't just sentence length. It's how much punctuation is there within that sentence. It's how long are the words or how short are the words. Is it lots of short, snappy words, or is it lots of longer words? So it's not just the length of the sentence, which is where it's a really strong 2-word prompt.
Yeah.
It's
Totally
brilliant.
right. Yeah.
I like this, the goal is to avoid monotonous patterns. How many times do we see that? So I just thought this might be helpful to some of y'all.
I love it. I love it.
That is it. Y'all, thank y'all so much for hanging around with us all this time. I hope y'all learned a few things.